Mick and Sam, taking you to Jungle Land. Bengals pride, it fills the air. Every week we're always there. Touchdowns, tackles, all the plays. Bengals roaring every way. Stories, news, and game recaps. Jungle Juice, we bridge those gaps. Welcome to the Jungle Juice. Mick and Sam, let's break it loose. Cincinnati, hear our call. Bengals fans, unite us all.
Welcome into the latest edition of the Jungle Juice podcast. I'm Sam Gormley. He's Mick Nelson. Mick, how's it going?
Going good. How about yourself?
Good. It is really, really raining here. Like, we're supposed to have really bad storms overnight, but it's so if all of a sudden I just disappear, I've been struck by lightning. So there you go. That's the reason why. Or the little tree that is outside my door. So if that happens, make sure you at least pull a clip and post it. Can you do that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, good. That's what we're here for. On today's show, we are going to have our mock offseason. Paul Dehner Jr. from The Athletic puts this together. Is it perfect? No. But it's kind of fun to put through on some of the moves that we would make if we were Duke Tobin. We'll update some of the headlines as well from the week. Duke Tobin talked. Trey Hendrickson responded. We've got a couple of reserve future contracts as well to discuss, and then we might even discuss a little bit of Super Bowl discussion as well. But we invite you to follow us on our social media channels. We're on Facebook, YouTube. We're also on Twitter. We're also on your favorite podcasting platform. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating there so more people can find the show that way. But first off, I think the way that we have to start was the biggest news from the past week, and that was the Pro Bowl. Did you watch a single second of anything from the Pro Bowl this weekend?
No.
I had it on in the background. So Sunday I was doing some chores around the house. Like I was cleaning my kitchen, cleaning my bathroom and so on. And it was on. So it'd be one of those things that I'd walk through and I'd stand there for about 15 seconds and be like, oh, they're playing flag football. And then I'd walk away. Like I saw Jamar score a touchdown and then apparently he ran and took the football and like bowled it. I don't really know why. And then I saw that the final score was like 96-73 or something. I didn't really understand how they got points. But I saw everybody making jokes saying that another Joe Burrow team scores 73 points and loses. And that hurt.
Yeah.
That hurt.
I'm kind of numb to it. I did see Marshall Manning, Peyton Manning's son, throwing dimes to Jamar Chase.
Really? I missed that.
Yeah. No, Marshall Manning's only 13. He's only 13 years old, and he throws the ball pretty well.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I completely missed that. Heck, that would have been a lot more entertaining than a lot more of the Pro Bowl that we actually saw. But yeah, I mean, Jamar, he played pretty well. Joe Burrow played pretty well. Trey Hendrickson was there. There we go. There's your Pro Bowl recap, right? I don't really know that there's much more for us to discuss.
Yeah, I don't think Pro Bowl.
Let's go to next. I think really the biggest news story of the week is we've got a couple new players, right? Including, listen, I've got my towel ready. We got a Hilltopper, Mick. Mitchell Tinsley, former Western Kentucky Hilltopper. I gotta like wave my red towel here. Transferred to Penn State. He signed to a reserve future contract. He played for Penn State, started at Washington. This is a camp body. You know, it's a camp body. I saw people immediately on Twitter were like, well, there's the Tee Higgins replacement. No, he's a camp body. He'll compete to be the 6th wide receiver.
Yeah.
He's Shedrick Jackson.
I never saw you giving love to Mike Abraham when he came to the Bengals. I don't even know if Mike Abraham had his own post. Like because whoever the hell this Mitchell Tinsel guy is.
Mitchell Tinsley. He's clearly better than any wide receiver Marshall's ever had. Who have they had?
Oh yeah, we haven't had
anybody.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah, overrated. Mitchell Tinsley's the way to go. But still, it's a camp body. I'm excited though. I at least get a Hilltopper for a little bit. See, I've got my sign back here. That's a list. You can't really see it behind my microphone, but it's a list of all of the WKU Bengals guys. And there hasn't been an update on it since Antoine Grant back in 2016. So I now need to get a new sign to put Mitchell Tinsley on there as well. And then Jalen Davis was signed to a reserve future contract as well. I don't think
Jalen Davis. I know
Yeah.
that name.
Yeah.
Has he been on the practice squad the whole time?
He has. He has.
has.
He's been on the practice squad. He was called up, I think, 1 or 2 games this year. He just never seems to go. T. Brookie says Randy Moss played some football in the NFL. I don't know who that is. I've never heard of him. Never heard of him. I'm joking. Okay. I'm just saying that Mick is a Marshall fan. I'm a Western fan, so we have to go back and forth when it comes to that.
It's not even a rivalry anymore. I don't know why you're so
because Marshall won't
I don't know
continue.
why you're so hung up on.
Because Marshall's too scared of the top.
They moved on to better things.
They're scared of the tops. Duke Tobin talked this week. He said some things. He said a lot of he had a lot of words. He did. And I don't necessarily disagree with anything he said.
No.
So here it is. He talked to Kelsey Conway from the Inquirer. So all of this goes, credit goes to Kelsey. She got the exclusive interview with it. Like a couple of the quotes that he said here. I've got like the top 5 that stood out to me the most. For one, his main one that he kept going to was, how many top guys at every position can you pay on a team? He's not wrong. He's not wrong. That's the truth. And right now, the Bengals already have a top-level quarterback. They're going to have a top-level wide receiver. Can they afford to have? That's primarily directed towards Trey Hendrickson. Can they afford to have a third guy? I don't know. I guess technically they probably also have a top-level kicker, right? I'm sure Evan McPherson is probably in the top upper level when it comes to kicking.
He's in like the top quadrant, but Evan McPherson kind of took like a discount to stay with the Bengals. I think most of the kickers were signing around an average annual value of $6 million per year. I'm pretty sure Evan was either 5.5 or 5 even. So I guess he's still in the top quadrant of kickers also, but those are also stupid cheap.
Yeah, without question. He also goes on, Duke Tobin says, we need more pass rush. Yep, no question about that. But what he said here, I think, is a really good point. He says, but you have to get yourself in pass rush situations more than we did. We had too many manageable third downs, so you got to get yourself in those positions more, and you also have to play with a lead, which helps the pass rush as well. I don't disagree with anything he said there either.
No.
That's where it goes. Like, your pass rush can only do so much. On Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase, he says it's going to be hard as far as extending them both. We feel like we have the resources to do it, but it all depends on how the negotiations goes and whether they're willing to accept wanting to come back at a number that makes sense for everybody.
That's a little, that's with T. I think we all, it's like a 50-50 shot, but if he's applying that statement to Jamar,
to me, that's a Tee Higgins. That's a Tee Higgins comment.
Okay.
Jamar Chase is going to get whatever the hell he wants. And he should. Like, I just can't imagine that, unless Jamar just comes in as like, I want $50 million a year. But I literally think if Jamar has any reasonable request, he's going to get it. I think that's directed towards Tee Higgins. And my guess is that Duke Tobin's going to pretty much tell Tee Higgins, we're going to pay you blank a year. Take it or leave it. It's going to be something like that, and there's probably not going to be a whole lot of room for negotiations when it comes to that, and that's more just based on they can't necessarily afford to do that because they got so many other holes that we're going to talk about as this goes along.
Well,
I didn't really have any problems with this.
I need to have a sweetener in these negotiations. Why don't they give Tee Higgins a microwave?
Oh, like Joe Burrow?
Yeah, give Tee Higgins a microwave.
Joe Burrow has one in his locker now. Because I think when they redid the locker room, I think they actually put one in there. It's
in the locker?
Yeah. Listen, when you're Joe Burrow, you
get T get T and Jamar those.
Okay. Is that what we keep him here?
They'll take a home team discount if you just put a microwave in their locker.
Maybe a mini fridge too?
Or what about an air fryer? Air fryer would be great in your locker.
Is that a fire hazard?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't leave my air fryer plugged in, so
I don't either. On Trey Hendrickson, Duke Tobin goes on. He says, we'll do what we feel is right, and we will try to get Trey re-signed. It's not giving anybody an extension. It's agreeing with somebody on an extension. Has he earned a pay raise and a bump in an extension? He has. And we're cognizant of that. And we will give that to him. But whether we agree on what that looks like is to be determined. So to me, that says is, yeah, Trey Hendrickson's underpaid without question. But he's under contract. And we're probably not going to pay him after next year. I think that's how I read that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, and I think the best way that this situation, so worst case situation that this goes down is that, so again, apparently I saw something come across my feed today that Trey's supposed to be in town next week to talk about these things.
Yeah. His agent next week, early next week. And I have more on that here in a little bit because he responded on Pat McAfee earlier today too. So we'll come back to that part here.
I mean, the worst way this could go down is that these guys are at an impasse. The Bengals aren't willing to deal him. And he just isn't happy and is going to sit out this contract, which there's a good chance he could do, considering how underpaid he is. He's also about to cross the bridge of 30 years old if he hasn't crossed it already. I'm pretty sure
he'll be 31 this year. He'll be
31 years old this year. So, like, you know, maybe a year off of football to just get your body right again. Might not sound too bad if the Bengals are unwilling to play ball with you. And you just see this all devolve in front of Joe Burrow while he's, you know, your franchise player, your highest paid player on the team. But, you know, this could go either one of two ways, which I think are more likely than that is the Bengals extending him or the Bengals trying to figure out a good trade partner in this situation. I know Diener and some other guy, Charles something, on the Growler were talking about this the other day because they did a whole episode diving into Trey Hendrickson.
You're Charlie Goldsmith.
Charlie Goldsmith. I didn't know Charlie's last name, but Charlie had some good insights.
At first you were like, Charles. I was like, who the hell is Charles?
But we've seen some pass rushers get dealt in recent seasons, and it seems like the sellers are usually the ones that feel like they've really won the trade. They brought up examples like Von Miller, Brian Burns, and others. I can't remember who the hell they are now. But it seems like, you know, that it usually ends up being a pretty good deal for the sellers. I mean, we see usually at least a second round pick being dealt in situations like this. For Brian Burns, it was a second and a fifth round. They were second and fifth round picks, which Brian Burns is a little bit younger than Trey Hendrickson, but we've never seen Brian Burns have the level of production in the pass rush that Trey Hendrickson has had. So, I mean, if that is what the offer is from other teams, like, I don't see how the Bengals can't take that. You have too many holes on your roster to fill, and you need to get some early draft capital in order to fill those holes.
We'll come back to that here too in a minute when we talk about our actual mock-off season and so on, if we end up taking a deal like that. The last thing Duke Tobin said was, and it's the quote that I think maybe circulated the most, and it was maybe my favorite quote, on Jermaine Burton. His direct quote was, he's done nothing. And he's going to have to start doing something quickly.
I'm surprised this guy has another chance.
I think for them, it's more of, why not? Why not give him the offseason? And if he screws it up, then he's a camp cut and you move on. Why not give him the offseason? And if he and it's probably his leash is as short as a leash can possibly be.
Yeah, I get that, but I think it kind of sends a bad message as to what the values that you have as a franchise are. I mean, especially if these allegations that came out about the whole domestic violence incident are true. Like, how can you stand by and let a guy be on your payroll and you're paying seven figures for that? Like, I don't know. I don't think it's a good look for the franchise, in my opinion, to keep this guy on the team.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. Trey Hendrickson was on Pat McAfee earlier today, and he responded to some of those quotes that we just talked about as two with Pat McAfee. Trey says he still has not heard from the Bengals front office. He heard about Duke Tobin's comments that we just talked about from his dad. His dad texted him and was like, hey, Duke said this about you. Like you just talked about, he wants an extension or a trade before OTAs.
Yeah. The best thing you
And-
could do is do right by Trey in this situation, whether it's a trade or you extend them, which I don't necessarily agree with. But I mean, I just want to see this team do right by the players for a change sometimes. And not to say they don't ever do it, but I mean, there's been some real situations lately.
He says he wants to stay a Bengal, but his main goal is he wants to help the Bengals to win a Super Bowl. And he pretty much says is that if that means that I am helping the Bengals win the Super Bowl on the field, that's great. If that means they're trading me and the guy that replaces me is helping the Bengals win the Super Bowl because of what they get for me, then that makes me happy as too. His final thing is pretty much he just wants to be paid what he is worth. And don't
just
we all?
Like every person in this world. Don't we all?
So yeah, there we go. Those are a couple of the news headlines. And then really quick, not to spend a whole lot of time on this. Myles Garrett's going to replace Trey Hendrickson for the Bengals, right? Since he's now requesting a trade, that's going to happen, right? I saw everyone on social media said that's obvious, right?
I really want to know what the market for. I know we're not going to get him, but I am interested to see what his market ends up being. I mean, definitely a first round pick at the very least. But we got to remember, Myles Garrett's getting up there in age a little bit now. I mean, Myles Garrett is an athletic freak where I think he can still have high level of play up until like the age of 35, like your Khalil Mack or your Von Miller. Yeah, I'm excited or interested to see what that market is for him, because I imagine the Browns could get quite a haul for him, especially considering how many edge rusher needy teams there are this year.
I mean, if we're being honest, there's really not a team in the NFL that isn't going to take more edge rushers. Other than maybe like Pittsburgh. And I know what you're saying. I know what you're meaning. But it's like, to me, edge rushers are like, really, defensive and offensive linemen are like bullpen arms in baseball or pitchers in baseball. You can never have too many. Like the Reds. They're just like, how many pitchers can we have? 5 of these guys are going to stay healthy.
Especially on the defensive line. Like we've seen this trend over recent years of teams really making an effort to kind of swap out defensive line players to keep them fresh throughout the season and to get the most out of these guys.
Yes, no question. Let's jump into our mock offseason. Again, this is something, if you haven't played around with it, this is open to the subscribers from The Athletic. Paul Dehner Jr. does a really good job in putting this together. Is it perfect? No, it's not. But it's a fun exercise to at least give you an idea on how difficult some of these decisions the Cincinnati Bengals have. So what he does is he gives us the opportunity here to make cuts for players and then draft picks to fill some of the voids. And then you go through and you can potentially sign some free agents as well. So I think the best place for us to start is going to be where the Bengals start first, and that is cuts.
Yes.
I'm going to go through the list here of who I cut, and I want you to just say agree or disagree. And then if I miss someone, because I think how many cuts did you have? Did you say 4?
I had 4 cuts.
So I had 6. So I had more. So first off, Joe Burrow, right? No. I mean, what's he done? Like,
how much dead money would Joe Burrow have?
I think it's like $50 million in dead money or something.
How much dead cap do we have with
it
Joe
would be
Burrow?
an insane amount of dead money. So I think the most obvious cut maybe in Bengals history, Sheldon Rankins. I think maybe the most obvious cut. And I'm hoping he's on your list.
Yes, he is on my list.
Sam Hubbard, second. Love Sam Hubbard, but you can't pay him at the cost that it's going to be next year.
Agreed.
Alex Kappa.
Agreed.
Zach Moss.
Oh shit! I meant to put him on here. Agreed. I did not put him on here. Okay. Now we have
Zach
more
Moss
money
saves $3.5 million. Cordell Volson saves $3.6 million. I put him on there.
Disagree.
Okay. And he is the one I might have gone the most back and forth on.
And it goes back to your argument there that you can't have enough offensive line bodies. I know that 3.6 billion is, a good chunk of change that you could save on the cap, but he's a guy who's had plenty of experience starting a guard for this team, even if he doesn't end up starting this season. He's a good guy to kind of replace if somebody in the interior offensive line goes down.
To me, this decision is going to be made by Scott Peters, the new offensive line coach. It's pretty much they're going to say Cordell Volson was okay at points. I don't know that he's ever been great, but last year there were some points where they couldn't even put him on the field because he was awful and he got benched. Can you fix him? Can you bring him back to even just okay? And I think that's probably where this is going to go. I went back and forth, but I ended up going with cut. And then Geno Stone I had on my cut list.
Yes, I have Geno Stone on my cut list as well.
He's another one that I went back and forth on. So you had nobody on your list then that I did not have on my list, correct?
I believe so.
So my cuts are Rankins, Hubbard, Kappa, Moss, Volson, Stone.
Yeah, the only one. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Next up on this decision is what did you do with Tee Higgins?
Let him sign for a lot of money elsewhere.
Wow. So you let him go in free agency.
Yes.
Interesting. What played into your decision?
I think it is malpractice for us to be paying wide receivers 30 plus million, 2 wide receivers 30 plus million average annual value a year. And also, I don't think the Bengals could swing it.
I took the opposite. I extended him. Number 9 wants it. And you saw when Tee Higgins is on the field and Jamar Chase is on the field with the Bengals, this offense is another level. And I just don't feel comfortable. You know, we talked a lot about this last week. I don't know how much you can dive into and put, I guess, faith in picking somebody up to fill his void. You know, and I know you're probably going to get 3 or 4 guys to try and fill that. But if you would have seen more from Yoshavash, or you would have seen something from Jermaine Burton, I think the answer is yes. But since that was, and I don't want to say Yoshi was a strikeout because he wasn't. Yoshi was what, like a single into left field? You know, good, but not going to do a whole lot. It is just not what you needed to do. And so because of that, I extended Tee Higgins just because I don't think they have anyone else.
That's why you got to put faith in number 9 to make it work. And you got to replenish the ranks.
Yeah.
I mean, the good franchises do that.
Yeah. What'd you do with Trey Hendrickson?
Trade.
I agree. I traded him. In fact, I even got specific because I was reading an article and there was a projected trade, and I would accept this. The Chicago Bears in the second round have picked 39 and 41. So one of those 2 picks, either 39 or 41, and then let's just say a 5th or a 6th for Trey Hendrickson. So that was my trade. That I traded him to the Bears, which will hurt a little bit because that means we're going to see him on the other sideline in Paycor next season. But I just said a 2nd and a 5th or a 6th this season.
Okay, I didn't specify the trade. I just picked right down the middle of the second round. So pick right around where the Bengals are picking in the second round. So I just put it right around like pick number 50.
And that works too. I just more did that because I was reading an article earlier today from a Bears fan site that they were recommending the Bears to make that trade. And I said, okay, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that deal without question. Okay, so we are in agreement when it comes to that. Okay. When we look at the offense for the Bengals, I think this is our next place to go. Quarterback 1 obviously set in. Quarterback 2, Jake Browning, obviously set in. Running back 1, Chase Brown, obviously set in. Running back 2, though, is an interesting decision. Donna writes in, she says she wants to keep T and Trey. I wish it was possible, but I just don't know that it is. I don't know. The Trey Hendrickson thing, we might almost have to do a Trey Hendrickson show and just break down that decision so many different ways because it's fascinating. But running back 2, what are you doing?
I'm going to do what I said what we were going to do last year that we didn't end up doing. There was a guy from the Green Bay Packers by the name of A.J. Dillon who could be, a Derrick Henry light at times when he was playing and he was healthy. I would assume with him being out this past year that he might be a bargain value replacement, which, around $1.5 million, $2 million. I still think it'll probably be about $3 million for A.J. Dillon, but just a 1-year prove-it deal. I mean, we've seen really good production out of him in his career. The grading's been really good for A.J. Dillon, especially on the ground. hasn't graded below a 76 in run grade in his career. He's had 2 years in the high 80s, which is towards top of the league if you're taking all the running backs into account there. And he's another one of those ground and pound guys that kind of complement what Chase Brown does, who's the lightning quick good receiving back. So yeah, AJ Dillon's my guy here.
I don't have a name for you, but day 3 pick is where I went.
Okay.
You're looking for a guy in the 5th or the 6th round. You're looking, and when I say the next Chase Brown, I'm not meaning a guy like Chase Brown. I'm just meaning one of those day 3 running backs that you're hoping to find that can fill that void. Tommy says he'd like to bring back Herbert.
Herbert was another option for me as well.
To me, Herbert would be running back 3 for me. And because I think he's not going to cost a lot. And really, your rookie would be in between those two. So you'd have like running back 1 is Chase Brown and 2 and 3 is Herbert and the rookie to be when it comes to that. But running back to me is a position you can find a Zach Moss. You can find a lot of guys that aren't going to cost you a lot of money moving forward based on just that. Okay, Jamar Chase. I'm assuming that we both checked the box of extension.
Yes.
Wide receiver 2. I have already said that my wide receiver 2 is Tee Higgins with an extension. I'm fascinated here. What is your wide receiver 2 next year?
So
you kind of had to find Darius Slayton.
No, it is not Darius Slayton. Mine is Joshua Palmer, wide receiver from the Los Angeles Chargers. We've seen some pretty good production out of Joshua Palmer in his career. He's consistently graded in the high 60s, which is not, a Tee Higgins level of replacement. I get that. But he's a guy that I think could provide some good value, especially with Joe Burrow as his quarterback. And drafting him, you're most assuredly drafting a wide receiver early in this draft in the draft as well.
Listen, that's not a bad pickup whatsoever for the Bengals. If you're going the Tee Higgins route and letting him walk, you have to sign a free agent. I think you have to. And listen, what free agent wouldn't want to come play for Joe Burrow? Yeah. Like, if you were a pass catcher, why wouldn't you want to come play in this offense?
Guess what his average value is per year?
About
$6.5 million per year, which is a lot easier for the Bengals to swing in this situation.
Riley says he had Chase on his 5th-year option since that's what's going to happen with a cap, but obviously extended. And there's because this season Chase will play on his 5th-year option no matter what. So really, the extension when it comes to our sheet this year really has no impact whatsoever. Wide receiver 3. For me, I'm going to the draft, and I'm going to take my first draft pick in this realm. And 3rd round pick out of Oregon. Tez Johnson is who I'm going with. He's a slot receiver. When you look at him, 890 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns, only 3.5% drop rate. Then the part that gets my little heart excited too with him is he does have some experience returning kicks, which is something I want to see more of, some more explosion from that realm, especially if you're not going to be re-signing some guys. So and again, I've not gone all the way into the draft yet, but he was one of the guys in that realm of a 3rd round pick for the Bengals that I went with. So with Tez Johnson to be the Bengals' new slot receiver.
Yeah. So Tez Johnson, I see where you're going there. I kind of like Tez Johnson. He's like a Tank Dell light in terms of just blazing speed. He's definitely on the smaller end of these receivers in the 2025 draft class. Tommy sums it up pretty well. He is a playmaker. He had a really big role in that Oregon offense. I did go a different route with the receiver who I think has the best value out of any receiver in the top half of this draft. And that is wide receiver out of Ole Miss, Trey Harris.
What round is this then?
This would be either the 2nd round pick we get from Trey or
this is one of your seconds. Okay.
This is one of the 2nd round picks that I would get.
Okay.
And Yeah, I mean Trey Harris has played at an extremely high level the past 2 seasons. I mean, 89 receiving grade last year, 90 receiving grade in 2023. Now, some of that production you can maybe argue it might be in the jailbroken offense that Lane Kiffin is kind of put together there. I mean, they kind of run a similar offense to Tennessee, where the ball's kind of spread out a little more. But I just really like his build. He would be more of that X receiver, kind of like Trey or kind of like T. But I think he has a little bit more speed than T has, a little bit more explosion. I mean, we're seeing 18.3 yards per reception and 17.2 yards per reception the past 2 years. Over 1,000 yards last year, 15 touchdowns over the past couple of years, 5.15 yards per route ran in 2024, which is astronomically high. I mean, that's higher than Jermaine Burton right there from last year. So I'm not sure why the draft is more sour on him than why I am. But that would be my replacement.
I like it. I like it. I like it as well. Tight end 1 for the Bengals. I'm bringing back Mike Gesicki.
I am too.
I don't think he's going to cost you a whole heck of a lot. And I think you really start to see late in the season him blossom into that role and get a relationship with Joe Burrow. And I think the tweener fits well, especially when you have your more blocking tight ends of Drew Sample and, oh gosh, what's the guy now that they just re-signed that we've talked so much about? Cam Grandy. Yeah, you've got more of the true blocking tight ends. I think you need somebody who can maybe go out and catch some passes. And Mike Gesicki's pretty much wide receiver 4 almost, in that realm, or wide receiver 3 sometimes. So I also brought back Mike Gesicki. Left tackle Orlando Brown Jr. is slotted in there, and I feel pretty good about that. And then your right tackle is slotted in there at Amarius Mims. Left guard for the Cincinnati Bengals next year. Mick, who will be your left guard for the Bengals?
This is where it got really tough. I put Ted Karras in there for now.
Oh,
now,
okay, intriguing.
Yeah, and that could obviously change. But yeah, I mean, I think that one of the options you have is to give Matt Lee a go at center, and then moving Trey to left guard, moving Ted Karras.
You could put Trey Hendrickson at left guard if you want.
I don't know how that'd work out, but yeah, I mean, I think Karras is going to be on this offensive line somewhere. The question is really just, where is he going to be?
I'm keeping him at center, and Bengals are going to right or wrong, because if you think back to 2021, early in the second round, they trade back, and the Bears end up drafting an offensive lineman instead, and the Bengals decide to draft a guy by the name of Jackson Carman and pass on Tevin Jenkins. It's going to cost some money, and the Bengals don't traditionally do this, but he's been very consistent over his career as a guard. 75.8 pass blocking grade, consistency. And listen, you're spending money to protect your best quality, and that's number 9.
Are you picking? So your Tevin Jenkins is one of your offensive linemen?
He is my left guard. Okay,
he is actually my left guard. I just looked at it again.
Oh, okay. So we agree.
So I guess I'm either moving Trey to right, or I'm using my 4th round draft pick in right, or at the right guard position, which we'll discuss him here in a second. But Tevin Jenkins is definitely on my list. The injuries have been he's dealt with some injuries throughout his career. This year, I think he had a decent amount of play. Actually, played in 16 games this year, I believe.
And he was the lone bright spot on that offensive line.
Yeah, like you said, the grading's been really good. You've seen a consistent improvement in pass block grade every year. You said 76 this past season, 74 in run blocking grade. Yeah, he's somebody I would love to see on the Bengals this offseason.
So I said I keep Ted Karras as my center. My right guard next year. You said Matt Lee is your center next year, right?
Maybe. It's either Matt Lee or Ted Karras.
Okay.
Yeah.
My right guard, this is where I throw a dart, and I'm hoping I get lucky. And I'm going to go to the Arizona Cardinals. and go for Will Hernandez. He had a knee injury, missed a lot of last season, but graded 70 plus pass blocking each of the last 3 seasons. And in his 5 games before missing the entire season with a knee injury, he didn't allow a sack. Has some experience at right guard. He's probably not going to cost a ton. To me, he's a guy that you signed to 2 years. You have an out after year 1, and if it doesn't work, you're okay. But I'm going to sign Will Hernandez as my right guard next year.
Okay. So my right guard is either Ted Karras, Cordell Volson, or my 4th round draft pick out of William and Mary, Charles Grant. Charles Grant right now is sitting around like the 115 mark of the consensus board. But he's just graded really well in his time at William and Mary. Now I know the level of competition isn't that great.
Well, and Duke Jobin's also a William and Mary guy, isn't he?
No, he's
that's right. We talked about that. Colorado, he is. There is a William and Mary connection on the Bengals. Keep talking. I'm going to try and find it.
Okay. Anyways, I've been after looking at the draft board, I am a big fan of Charles Grant. 88 pass blocking grade this past season, only allowed 2 sacks, only allowed 9 pressures in 13 games played. I think he's starting to shoot up some draft boards. I mean, I think he was hovering right around the 200 mark up until recently. Like I said, he's up around the 115 mark. And, if you're going to replace Cordell Volson, you got to replace him with an FCS 4th round draft pick.
Well, Mike Potts, who is the Bengals head of collegiate scouting, was a quarterback at William & Mary.
Okay.
Knew that there was a connection. So, I mean, he played there, so he probably at least knows who this guy is. So I like that. Well, you better know who he is. We got Tommy's ringing endorsement here, too. And Tommy's, like that, yeah.
You know how big of a college football guy Tommy is.
Okay. So there you go. Mims is our right tackle. Offensive tackle 3. I'm going to assume we agree here. Cody Ford?
Yeah, I brought back Cody Ford.
Your wife's not listening, is she?
I don't think she cares that much.
Good. Interior offensive lineman 4. So this is another piece. I guess this is where you threw in Cordell Volson.
Yes.
Okay. I'm using my Trey Hendrickson pick. So I said to the Bears 39 or 41, and I'm going to go to a guy here that I think one Tommy Lipscomb will know very well. Wyatt Milam. Tackle guard from West Virginia. I know PFF expects him to be a guard when it comes into the NFL, but when you look at his stats, wow. I mean, really good stuff. Started at left tackle, 92.6 pass blocker, did not allow a sack, only allowed 6 total hurries all season, and 4 of those came in 1 game against Baylor. So he's a guy that, to me, you keep him, and maybe Will Hernandez doesn't work out. Maybe he's not healthy or something, and he's your guy maybe next year. And a phenomenal depth piece, especially with a guard tackle flexibility, that you don't always have to rely on Cody Ford. So I think he is a better Cody Ford in the realm of the flexibility.
Yeah, I like Wyatt Milam a lot. Also, he is from where I'm technically from. He's a Huntington, West Virginia product.
Oh, I'm going to change my mind now.
He was actually supposed to play baseball at Marshall, and then all of a sudden,
I think he made the right decision.
Yeah, I think he did too. He just got some recognition for his football play. Ended up signing with West Virginia. Has been a great offensive tackle for them. The one thing I'm a little sour on Wyatt Milam is I don't know if the measurables are going to necessarily be there. At the combine, which, it's an offensive tackle. You don't really expect that, for an offensive tackle to be running like a 4.6 or 4.7 or something like that. But I just don't know if the measurables are necessarily going to be there for him.
The Bengals had Trent Brown as one of their tackles. I don't think they really give a crap. Trent Brown, I think I could run a 100-yard dash faster than he could run a 40-yard dash. And I'm not fast.
I mean, our franchise left tackle is also had
really
one
slow.
of the worst combine performances in history. I mean, it's so bad that it pushed him down to the 3rd round. So
I don't think. For the Bengals, I'm not sure. Now that could have been a Frank Pollock thing. Scott Peters might want some more speed. I don't know. But Milam was my second round pick. He's my Trey Hendrickson pick for that. At least my first one when it comes there. Okay, let's jump over to the defense.
Jeez.
This is where it gets interesting. I think it's safe to say.
This is where it got really hard.
So we have both made the decision, remember, to get rid of Trey Hendrickson, which hurts a little bit. Edge rusher 1. For me, I'll start it off, and this is where I'm jumping into my first round pick. I think this is where the Bengals almost assuredly are going to go, unless the draft just completely changes, and it hurts me a little bit.
Oh shit!
As a diehard Kentucky fan,
to
drop in James Pierce.
Oh, damn! I'm so disappointed.
I have standards, Mick. I'm not gonna drop in a Marshall guy here. Let's be real. I have standards. No, James Pierce, been one of the better pass rushers in college football in the last 2 seasons, and a good run defender too, which is something that, I mean, listen, we can say what we want about Trey Hendrickson. He's not a great run defender. That's not his strength whatsoever. 43 pressures, 8 sacks last year, and to me, what I always like to do. There's Tommy. He's dropping in your boy Mike Green. To me, what I always like to do is I want to see how you perform against the best. You know, especially when you're looking. Maybe James Pierce is not the perfect guy for this, but I want to see, like a William and Mary guy. I want to see how he did in his one FBS game. That's to me what says the most. He had his best game against Alabama. That's a good sign.
Not a bad team to have.
Exactly.
Game against.
Exactly. So I'm taking my first round pick of James Pierce.
Yeah. So James Pierce is pretty high on my board. I do not think he's going to be available at pick number 17. That's why I didn't end up going with him.
Are you going edge first round?
I am not.
Okay. So who's your edge 1 then next year?
So edge 1, it's pretty much just by default because we need to see what this guy has as a starter.
Oh gosh,
on this team, and it could go really badly.
Oh gosh, I'm scared.
You really need to figure out what you have in Miles
Cedric
Murphy.
Johnson. Oh no.
You need to figure out what you have in Miles Murphy. You have not given. You haven't given the Miles Murphy experiment, I guess, a try here yet. And he's going into year 3. It's been a rough couple of seasons for Miles Murphy. I get that. But you essentially need to figure out what you've got in the guy. And, this is kind of a perfect opportunity to figure out if he's, a good or at least a quality starting edge rusher in this league. You just got to get him the snaps.
Riley asked, you think Al Golden will go 4-3 over 3-4? Al Golden said in his press conference he was going to stick with a 4-3. That's at least what he said in his press conference. Now that very well could change when it comes to that. Edge rusher 2. This is where I kind of went back and forth. And I ended up deciding to go with a guy that I've loved since he came out of college. And we talked about him during the season as a possible trade deadline guy. And I've wanted him forever. So finally I said, you know what? I'm going to go out and get Azeez Ojulari.
You're dogging the Miles Murphy pick. Azeez Ojulari's grading's been not much better.
Well, Miles Murphy's my 3. So it's those two guys are kind of your rotational, you're going to see those. Hopefully James Pierce is your dude. And then you're going to see those next 2 kind of rotate in and out. Ojulari, though, has been a guy I've always liked. He had 7 sacks. Hasn't graded great over his career, but he does something that Miles Murphy has not done yet, and that's he's produced sacks-wise. I mean, Miles Murphy had a big old goose egg. You had as many sacks as Miles Murphy did, and so did Riley this year. 0. Now, the one red flag, just one major red flag with Ojulari is missed tackles, or a problem with him. But he's a guy that I've always liked, loved him in Georgia, so I'm going to sign Azeez Ojulari for the Bengals.
Okay, my edge rusher 2 will be one of my second round draft picks. I'm going with JT Tuimoloau, edge rusher out of Ohio State. It's graded pretty well throughout his career there, 86 defensive grade. He's a lot better in run defense than in pass rush, 87 run defense grade, 78 pass rush grade. Had 51 total pressures, 15 sacks in 2024, which I just said he's even better at run defense. And the dude still produced 15 sacks on that just monster Ohio State defensive line, edge rushing unit, or pass rushing unit, whatever you want to call it. Had some really good games against some quality teams. 2 sacks against Indiana, 2 sacks against Tennessee in the playoff game, 2 sacks against Texas in the college football semifinal game. People talk about Jack Sawyer as the potential second-round draft pick, and don't get me wrong, I love Jack Sawyer, but I do not think he's going to be around by the time the Bengals draft in the second round. But I think there's a really good chance JT Tuimoloau is.
You really just want to see Bengals fans have to pronounce that last name. Isn't that part of your reasoning too?
Tuimoloau.
Yeah, it's fun to say. Who's your edge 3?
So I went back to the roster for this one. I think Joseph Osai is going to sign for, I think, more money than the Bengals are going to be willing to give him, especially considering the production that he's had. It's been decent, but it hasn't been, I don't think it would be necessarily worth it. So I'm going back to the well for Cam Sample. Should be fairly cheap after the injury that he had this past offseason. Hopefully he's just, he's pretty much recovered from that by the time training camp rolls around. But we've seen Cam Sample have some decent production on the team. He's familiar with the team, with the defense, with some of the coaching staff on there. So yeah, I'm gonna bring that Cam Sample for a very cheap price.
I like that. And I said I have Myles Murphy in that realm. Defensive tackle 1. This is where I want to see the Bengals spend some money. You look up and down, the great teams in the NFL have a dude in the middle. And the Bengals have not had a dude in the middle in a decade. I mean, listen, BJ Hill's fine. He's fine. He's not a dude. He's not. He's just not, and I like BJ Hill. They've not had it since prime Geno Atkins. So I'm dropping money. And I'm going to go to Milton Williams.
Okay. I like it.
Coming off the best season of his career, 6 sacks, 7 quarterback hits. Second, this to me, though, is what you want to see. Second highest pass rush grade amongst interior defensive linemen. The only one higher was
Chris Jones.
Yeah. I'll take that. Yes, please. On the Bengals defense next year. So that is my big thing. See, to me, DJ Reader is not, he is a different kind of player. I'm talking about the guy that can rush the passer, and DJ Reader was not a pass rusher out of that. Great run defender. But DJ Reader's not a 3-tech in that realm.
So my 3-tech, like you said, I want to see a guy in there because I think it's understandable.
I know where you're going with this.
How much of a game wrecker a good defensive 3-tech tackle can be in this league. I mean, hell, the best defensive player I think we've both have watched on a consistent basis came from a 3-tech. The best defensive player the Bengals have had since you and I have been watching the Bengals has been at the 3-tech position. So I went with Walter Nolan as my first round draft pick out of Ole Miss. The grading's been really good for him this season. 89 defensive grade. Better in run defense than he is in pass rush. He had a 92 run defensive grade, which is really, really, really high. 75 pass rush grade, which is, I don't want to say it's lacking, but it could be better. But six sacks, 35 total pressures last year. I think that we saw just a huge improvement in his game from his sophomore to his junior season. And he's a guy I think is going to be available at the pick number 17.
I like it indeed. Defensive tackle 2, this is where it doesn't necessarily excite me, but I think you have to hope for Chris Jenkins to do something.
Yep, I agree.
I mean, he's a second round pick. You got to hope that he does something. You can't just keep throwing money at it. And then my defensive tackle 3. I think you're going to see McKinley Jackson in a role like this, but I went to add in another depth body in there. I went to Poona Ford. Had a major bounce back season this year for the Chargers. Graded really well. 3 sacks after only 150 snaps in Buffalo in 2023. Not going to cost a lot of money as a rotational guy in there. I'm going to sign Poona Ford.
Okay. My defensive tackle 4, I guess, is Bobby Brown III out of Los Angeles. Really, he's really just a bargain level replacement. I think he's projected around $2.5 million, but the grading's been decent. 61 defensive grade, 66 run defense. Pass rush hasn't necessarily been there, but he's kind of that run stuffing nose tackle that you need. 6'4", 325 pounds. And this guy would serve as more of a backup to McKinley Jackson or a rotational piece to McKinley Jackson.
Linebacker 1 is obviously Logan Wilson. He set that in there. Linebacker 2, though, this is an interesting decision for the Cincinnati Bengals. What'd you do?
I kept Jermaine Pratt.
Oh, I didn't even put him on there as my cuts. I would cut him. I have more money to deal with. I forgot. I meant to cut Jermaine Pratt.
No, I'm cutting him, even though there is a caveat there that
I got a lot more money to work with now. Shoot.
This is a decent linebacker class in the free agent market. I mean, you do have guys like Nick Bolton, Ernest Jones, Tyrell Dodson that are going to be free agents this year. But my thing is, I don't think the cut of Jermaine Pratt is necessarily worth it. We still seen him play at a decent level with the team. Him and Logan seem to have good rapport with each other. I just don't see a reason to get rid of Jermaine yet.
Yeah, I'm getting rid of Jermaine Pratt without question. So I actually have more money to deal with now. I got a lot of money now. So that might change everything how I do this, but I'll just stick with it. Now, the Bengals always have extra money to spend. You never know who might pop up. I went with Robert Spillane. Up and down this past season, but graded decently, had over 100 tackles. I see the Bengals going in they love their not very expensive upper 20 linebacker. They love guys like that, throughout their history, Preston Brown. We could keep on naming guys
Josh
like that
Bynes.
they've signed. Yeah, they've signed over the years. AJ Hawk, James Harrison, they just love guys like that. So I'm going to go Robert Spillane in that realm. But I brought this up to you. We think back to, I guess, 2 years ago. I remember sending you a text message when the Orlando Brown Jr. signing came through, and I think you thought it was a joke. And I kind of did too. I thought somebody had hacked Rappaport or Schefter or something when it had happened. Of just a out of left field, whoa, Bengals signing. And I brought this up to you the other night. Zach Bond would be a very interesting signing because of the connections. And that connection is new Bengals linebacker coach Mike Hughes. Is that his name? Or Mike? Bengals coach Mike. I think I can't remember Mike's last name.
Yeah.
It's Hughes. Remember. It's something. It's a very typical Smith. It's not Smith. It's just a very typical last name. He was this linebacker coach for 4 years in New Orleans. Bond has been great this year with Philadelphia. I did not mock this because I don't think the Bengals are going to pay that much for a linebacker. But if you're telling me to make a prediction of something that would maybe make me go, wow, that would be the one. I don't think it's going to happen, but I can see it, at least.
Yeah, he's had a really good season in 2024. The only hang up I have with Zach Bond is that we haven't really seen much success on the field prior to this season. So part of me wonders, well, how much of this is just Vic Fangio just knows how to tap into his players and get the most out of them. And the last thing I'd want the Bengals to do is to overpay on a guy that you're stuck with, like a Trey Waynes type of situation happening. You don't really want that to happen again. So I didn't end up going with Zach Bond.
And I did not
situation.
I did neither. My linebacker 3, I end up jumping in here to a 4th round pick for my linebacker 3. And you might know where I'm headed with this. I love connections. And there is no
Jack
bigger
Kaiser?
connection than Jack Kaiser. I mean, he was Al Golden's dude at Notre Dame. 75 tackles, played a lot of snaps with Al Golden. A lot of snaps. There's nobody that knows him better. And if he's there in the 4th round, Bengals probably have a hole at linebacker. Give me him.
Yeah, we're going to see one of these Notre Dame defensive players on this team, I think. Whether it's Jack Kaiser or Xavier Watts or whoever it ends up being, we're going to see somebody.
Maybe we will, yeah, without question.
Who's your linebacker on your spreadsheet?
I don't know, maybe. Who's linebacker 3?
I just signed ADG back. I think $4 million is a little high. I don't know. Like, yeah, he had a decent amount of snaps this year, but it's not like he was great. There's, when he was out on the field, he was okay. Made a couple of nice plays here and there. But yeah, just pretty much keeping the linebacker room intact on my board here.
Cornerback 1, CTB?
I believe so. Yeah.
Cornerback 2 and slot for me are interchangeable, I think. I have Dax Hill in the slot, and I have DJ Turner outside. Mm-hmm. I'm keeping those 3 together as my starting corners next year.
So I have DJ Turner, I guess technically my cornerback 4, because I think you need an insurance policy here. So I did get with Paulson Adebo, cornerback out of New Orleans. We've seen him play a lot of football in the past 4 years. His best season was in 2023, where he had a 79 defensive grade, 81 coverage grade. Pretty sure he had a decent amount of interceptions that year as well. He had 4 interceptions in 2023. Didn't have as good of a year in 2024. The grading wasn't great. He had a 64 coverage grade, 63 defensive grade. Did still have 3 picks, and that's with his season being cut short at 7 games. But I think that he might be a guy that you can get for a Chidobe Awuzie level type of contract in 2025.
I like that. Quarterback 4 for me. Now, since I have money, I just put right now a bargain replacement. Josh Newton, I think, if he's your quarterback 4, you're okay. You're hoping maybe you can get some more out of him next year, but I think you're going to throw some money at somebody, get another veteran in there. I'm saying Eli Apple, not saying Eli Apple, but a guy like that. Maybe you're trying to bet on a guy that hasn't really produced, but has the tools to come in there and maybe get something out of him. Now, who that is, I don't know, because honestly, I just came up with $5.6 million and didn't really know what to do with it. Okay, safeties. We both got rid of Geno Stone, which means we have a big hole at safety 1. I'll start it off, and I'll go to a 2nd round pick. Surprise! Xavier Watts. From Notre Dame. We're going to get 2 Notre Dame guys for Al Golden. Give him some familiarity. He played both safety spots for Al Golden, which I liked last season. Played both strong and free. Graded pretty evenly at both. Had 6 interceptions, but the stat that stood out the most to me about Xavier Watts is the opposing QBR when he was targeted, 30.1. That's pretty darn good when you look at Xavier Watts. So he is my 2nd round pick. He is my actual 2nd round pick for the Bengals, because I took Milam as my high 2nd. So Watts is going to be my mid to late 2nd.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's a good pick. So I spent some money at safety, pretty much as an insurance, maybe not as an insurance replacement for in case of Jordan Battle doesn't work out, but just a guy to pretty much have in there. Trayvon Mayrig, safety from the Las Vegas Raiders, it kind of has been like the lone bright spot in the Raiders secondary for the past few seasons. Grades really well in run defense. Pass defense hasn't. He's been hit or miss. I mean, we've seen a 76 grade in his rookie year, a 68 grade in 2023, which are both pretty good. But you saw 2024 and 2022 grading in the low 50s. But run defense has always been his game. And I don't know if there's really a free safety and a strong safety anymore. I think it's really interchangeable. Now in the third round, I did also invest a draft pick in the safety room. Kevin Winston Jr., the safety out of Penn State. His season was cut short in 2024. Didn't make it past week 2, but if you see the way he played in 2023, he was off the charts good. 89 defensive grade, run defense grade of a 91, 87 coverage grade, which is really high. Had 2 picks last year. Passer rating allowed 81.5. And his best graded season or games really just came late in the season as well. I mean, you saw good games against Michigan where he graded an 80. Oh, my bad. Oh, I read that wrong. Still, his best grades did come later in the season. Albeit they weren't against the greatest of teams, but I think he would be a good pickup in the third round.
So I have Jordan Battle still as another starting safety for the Bengals.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, and there we go. So how much money do you have left?
I don't know how accurate this is, but I still had about 11 million.
And I have about $13 million left, which is usually about how much the Bengals have. Mm-hmm. Like they usually leave about $10 million left when it comes to that. I think we both did pretty good.
Yeah.
As far as that. Do you feel confident? Like if you had to say off-season move the Bengals make outside of internal. You get what I'm saying with this? Outside of re-signing Trey or T or something like that. So bringing somebody in, whether it's a draft pick or a free agent, who are you the most confident in the Bengals potentially doing?
Most confident?
Yes.
Because I mean, my confidence level for this is still like 20%, right?
Yeah.
My favorite one, and I think the one that makes the most sense, will be Tevin Jenkins.
I agree. Milton Williams would excite me so much. That one would get me very, very excited. But I do agree with Tevin Jenkins of being the guy when it comes to that. Super Bowl is on Sunday. Everybody's so excited to watch the Eagles and the Chiefs. You got a pick?
Fly, Eagles, fly. Yeah, we're going with the Eagles. And do I have anything to back up why? No. I just have to have faith, just like we all have to do in these trying times where, yet again, we got to watch the Chiefs in another Super Bowl.
I hope I'm wrong, but you can't bet against the evil empire. They got the dark magic, and
the former evil empire never did a three-peat. Never had a three-peat.
But he'll be there on Sunday. He'll be there in the broadcast booth on Sunday.
Yeah, and he's gonna put some voodoo on there to make sure that he's still the GOAT.
That could be true. That could be true. That it could do something.
They are in New Orleans.
They are in New Orleans with that. So I think it'll be. I just hope for at least a good game. Ron Torbert will be the official. So, I mean, we know clearly he's a great official. He never would give somebody a free play and a do-over. Never. That would never happen in a big game. But
was he the ref in Super Bowl 56?
Yes.
Fuck that guy.
And the AFC Championship the year after.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah, Riley's rooting for Barkley only. He doesn't want his future brother-in-law to be happy. Just Barkley. Not rooting for Matt. I'm rooting for Matt. I hope Matt's happy.
Yeah, I hope Matt's happy too. Matt's a nice guy, Riley.
Yeah, you're just saying that because you kicked his ass in college football a couple weeks ago.
And so did me. So did I.
Yeah, that's who I'm saying. You did.
Oh yeah. Oh, Riley also did that.
He did. You both did. That'll wrap us up here for this week. We'll be back next week for another edition of the show. Remember to follow us on our social media channels. We're on Facebook, YouTube. We're also on Twitter. We're also on your favorite podcasting platform. Make sure to rate, subscribe, 5-star rating, and everything that comes along with that. Any parting thoughts?
No. Let's go do this recruiting, Sam Gormley.
I've already done mine, so we're waiting on you.
Well, I'm going to go do my recruiting.
If you know, you know. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next time on Jungle Juice. Hoo day.
Go sandwiches.